Gotta be 2 o'clock somewhere.
Somewhere.
Huh?
Somewhere. That's 2 minutes or 2 o'clock?
That's 2 o'clock.
Yeah.
I think.
I think that's-
I'll wait till my phone says 2 o'clock. It says 2 o'clock. If it please the board, I'm gonna call this business together. Gotta be 2 o'clock somewhere.
Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to the September meeting of the St. Tammany Parish Board of Adjustment. You're all most welcome. We'll get on with the cases for this afternoon. Please silence all your phones and electronic devices. Any appeals to the decision of this board should go to the 22nd Court of Judicial Appeals. Speaker cards are available if you want to do it over here, but we only got 3 cases. I'll make sure everybody gets a chance to speak, for and against. For the public speaking, there'll be 10 minutes. The person making the petition will have 10 minutes. Any opposition would have 10 minutes, and then each side would have 5 minutes for rebuttal after that. And then once your case has been heard and a decision has been made, please promptly leave the building, exit the building, and so we can get on with our business at hand. Madam Secretary, could you call the roll, please?
Mr. Ballantyne from Mandeville.
Here.
Mrs. Thomas from Mandeville.
Present.
Mr. Daly from Covington. Mr. Blash from Mandeville.
Here.
Mr. Spees from Lacombe.
Here.
Mr. Swindell from Covington. And Mr. Sanders from Slidell.
Here.
And for the record, I would like to recognize Mr. D'Artagnan Saunders as a voting member today. He's an alternate, and he will be voting today. How about the approval of the minutes? Any comments on the minutes from our August meeting? I did something in red. I don't know what it was. Let's see if I can find to it. Nope, I'm good. Can I have a motion for the minutes? Any comments?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes from August 2nd.
I have a motion from Ms. Thomas to accept the minutes from August meeting. Do I hear a second? Second. Got a second from Mr. Blash. Any other comments? Please vote with your screen.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. All right, we'll proceed to our first case for this afternoon, BOA case number 2978. This is a request by an applicant in an A1 suburban zoning district for an after-the-fact waivers of the required pond setbacks and of the required 50-foot no-cut buffers along the east and west sides of the common property line. The property is located at 20247 Tammany Avenue, Covington, and 20140 Walden Street, Covington, Louisiana. Representatives are Larry Allman and Sherelle Phillips. Staff comments, please.
Yes, before I start my presentation, I would like to invite you to maybe take a look at the 3 aerials that are included in your packet. You have one aerial that shows you the property before anything was done. You also have an aerial showing you maybe an overview of the area, an entire parcel, and then also a Google view that shows you more of the 2 ponds that have been dug. And as it says here in the staff reports, but this is an after-the-fact request for a waiver of the required pond setback from the property line. The 2 ponds that were constructed here were constructed over the property line. There's no objection to the request, considering that the proposed ponds will improve the drainage on both parcels in a more centralized location. Should the board be in favor of that request, it should be subject to applying for the pond permit and meet all the other applicable requirements for a pond and also provide a maintenance agreement. In regards to the second request, it is a request for a waiver of the buffers between, along the property line, the 50-foot no-cut buffer on each side of the property line. As you can see here, some of the trees were removed to allow for the construction to digging the 2 ponds. There's no objection to the request. However, the board should consider either postponing the request to allow the property owner to submit a landscape plan showing the proposed location and species of the trees to be planted, and impose a timeline to have the replanting completed. It's also included in a narrative that additional native trees and shrub will be proposed to be planted to attract the wildlife. And should the board be in favor of the request, it should be subject to submitting a landscape plan and showing the species of trees, location, and impose a timeline.
Very good. So the Larry Allman or Sherelle Phillips, are you here? Who's going to speak? You both can speak. Please come up, state your name, address, and your relationship to this case.
Okay, Larry Alleman, 20140 Walden Street.
Cheryl Phillips, 20247 Tammany Avenue.
And we're family also.
What's the relationship?
Mother-in-law.
Son-in-law.
I got it. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I guess. You know, we've always treated the whole parcel as a 32-acre piece, not a 10-acre piece, not a 22-acre piece. Her piece is willed to my wife and I, you know, so we've always looked at it as one big piece and didn't recognize the property line as an issue.
It was like our little dream just to have this nice pond in between to help with the drainage, because you couldn't drive through it, you couldn't ride a horse through it, couldn't put any equipment in it for a long time because it was just so soggy.
Yep, about 8 months out the year, it was unusable land.
Right. And so, you know, one large pond, and I have livestock and everything on my side so they can use it. Plus, we have deer crossing through the property from one side to the other side, and we were going to leave it as kind of a thoroughfare for them. And our intention was to actually replace some of the native trees and bushes and stuff, you know, to enhance the property, because when we got it, it was a horrible mess. Katrina had knocked down a bunch of stuff. A lot of the trees had been diseased from getting broken, and beetles and things like that, and vines had covered the whole thing. So Larry had cleared it for me, cleared my side, and then, you know, he's building a house on his side. My house is already built. And that was just our grand plan. We didn't really realize anything about a 50-foot variance.
And I needed about $100,000 worth of dirt
Yeah,
for my house and in my area. So
he used the
Used
dirt
it.
from the pond for his house. And that's where we are today.
Okay. Why don't you just stand there for a second? Is there anyone here today in opposition to this request for the ponds and the setbacks and the waiver of some of the no-cut buffers? Any opposition at all? I see none. I see heads are shaking there. I see no opposition. So I will recognize Mr. Spees. Please ask your question.
Question for you. The staff is wanting you to submit plans and things like that. Do you have any problem with
we have that. It's kind of a rough drawing, but
Okay, so that you agree with that?
yeah.
Okay, that's all.
Mr. Blosh.
More of a staff question. In lieu of having the folks have to come back to our next meeting, could we just, or I'd like to suggest that we have them submit that to staff, and as long as it meets the approval of staff, we'll move forward.
I
Okay.
concur.
No problem.
Okay. Okay.
Anyone else have any comments or questions? Can anyone have a motion for this?
May I just ask a question?
Sure.
Maybe we can impose a timeline.
Okay,
to-
sure. Okay.
To, as part of the motion.
I'm not sure what a realistic timeline would be, because I have been asking different places about the availability of some of these plants. When I spoke to Regan at the other office over there, she wanted us to put A and B plants according to size. And so some of those are a little hard to get. So I would ask for kind of a lenient timeline in order to get the species and size we need, and plant them during a planting season.
Well, if the board, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Shut up.
It's okay. If the board is in favor, maybe I would suggest to wait or give you until maybe April 1st of next year to complete. Because, you know, we may have some rain, you may have a hard time finding trees, we're aware of this situation. And then it's still gonna put you into either planting or starting to plant in the fall and maybe continue in the
Yes,
spring.
and I have some trees already
Okay.
that I purchased.
Okay.
Okay, do you want me to bring this up to you?
I'll get it after.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well,
How
Mr.
about a
Chairman.
motion from somebody?
I'll give it a stab. Mr. Chairman, in case 2022-2978, I'd like to offer motion to accept the variance request with the following provisions: that, one, the approval be submitted for a landscape plan approved by staff. Number two, that we allow through a planning through the planning season. I actually would suggest that that's actually going to be on the planning season, right, April? I would think that's actually beyond it, huh?
I guess a little
Okay.
bit beyond, but you never know how cold or warm the spring can be, but,
Okay, so I'm okay with that.
April
And
1st?
April 1st.
okay.
Deadline for those to be in the ground planted. And I think that's it. I think that's all.
Well, let me ask a question. Should we, up above the staff comments, there was a pond permit and applicable requirements for the pond and a maintenance agreement? Would it
Oh,
be
yes,
Yes, maybe.
yes.
Subject
And
to that
I'll add,
also?
yeah, I'll add that subject to the
That's
the
completed and
maintenance agreement.
notarized.
Okay,
Yes,
but
Good catch.
we'll just make it part of the motion and then that's fine.
yes, sir, thank you.
Okay, I have, how about, do I hear a second on Mr. Blasch's motion? And Mr. Spies has seconded the motion to grant it. Any other discussion or comments? Please vote with your screen.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The second case for this afternoon is BOA case number 3006. Request by applicant in a A2 suburban zoning district to reduce a required 50-foot no-cut buffer to 25 feet on a portion of the north and south sides of the property, and on the east side of the property. The property is located at 292 Pearlou Road in Madisonville, Louisiana. The representatives is Kimberly Otan. And staff comments, please.
Once again, and if you have it with you, I mailed you a larger copy of the drawing that is submitted here as part of your packet. And if you also want to take a look at the survey, as you can see, the request here is to reduce portions of the required 50-foot no-cut buffer, as well as reduce the size of the no-cut buffer from 50 feet to 25 feet on the sides and in the rear. And if you look at this property, you have the parish maintained ditch that is crossing the property. You have a 50-foot no-cut buffer on each side of the property that is required. And basically, the owners have been working with the engineering department to try to come up with a plan that would meet the requirements. In other words, this is in a flood zone A, special flood zone area. They're trying to use some of the dirt for the pond to, for the two buildings here. And this plan has been approved by the engineering department, so staff has no objection to the request.
Thank you. Would you like to step forward and state your name and address and add anything that you would like to add as we review this case?
Okay, Kimberly Otan, 164 White Heron Drive, Madisonville, Louisiana. Bobby Otan, 164 White Heron Drive, Madisonville, Louisiana.
Okay, so the situation is there is a creek that runs through, a ditch through the land, through the property, dividing it in half. So the challenge is the buffers, and the buffers for that are with the ditch as well as the setbacks. So when you factor in usable land after the setbacks, it leaves us with about an acre for the house pad and the shed. So we were requesting a 25 forgiveness,
No cut zone.
no cut zone in the front of the property to the east, to the south, and the back of the property along the west side, and the rear, 25. That makes sense.
So, north.
Okay.
It would be 25 on the south side in the front of the creek, and 25 on the north side behind the creek, and 25 on the east and the back.
Okay. Got it. Anything else?
That's it.
Would you just step to the side? Anybody in opposition? The gentleman back there that keeps standing up, what would you like to say? Come on.
I'm with the engineering firm.
Well, come on.
Robert
State your
Berry
name and,
Associates. Yes, sir. So basically, with the pond
did
mitigation.
you state your name and address and all that?
Oh, yes, sir. Ryan Logston, 40363 Chandler Drive, and I'm with Robert Berry Associates.
Okay.
We were hired to do the no-fill plan, and basically, we placed the pond on the west side of this canal. To mitigate the canal crossing, there was really no room within these setbacks, so we just asked a portion of that to be reduced to 25. And then when we get to the east side of this canal, by the time we graded the house and the pad, the same thing occurred. We just ran out of real estate. So we want to keep these 25-foot buffers to help suck up some of the drainage in this, area, but we just couldn't make it work. So thank you.
Anybody else want to speak on this case? Seeing none, recognize Mr. Spees.
I have a question for the engineer. Can you be a little specific about how the water's going to run with that canal? It's still going to run through the canal, or is it going to go in the pond, or what is your plan on that?
Okay, so basically, the drainage will not change in any way. The natural drainage will all go to the canal. We were asked to do a hydrologic study, which, we didn't increase the flow. We will use the pond simply to mitigate the fill for the culvert crossing that canal.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, it won't go into anybody else's property?
No, sir, not at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just stand right there. I was going to recognize myself. First of all, who is Maria Robert?
She was the engineer with St. Tammany who approved our cut-fill plan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's the one who reviewed
I did not know that.
in the engineering department.
Wonderful. It's wonderful. Okay.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Blash?
Just wanted to offer, I guess, an observation and just a statement too. We've had very similar cases along Brewster Road, Perilou Road, that whole area where we've had an invasion of the 50-foot buffers and to the point where we've tried to stop it, and there's even been clear cutting and everything else. I would suggest this is not anywhere remotely close to those type of cases. This is what we want to see in terms of offering a variance. I think this presents a true hardship for the applicant, and so my own opinion of this is I have no issue with this at all. So.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing none, could I have someone make a motion?
I would move to. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would move that we approve BOA case number 2022-3006 with the stipulation that final approval of the drainage plan, pond, and land clearing be vetted through St. Tammany Parish office.
I'll second.
And we have a motion from Ms. Thomas to approve the variance, subject to the drainage plan being approved, et cetera, and Mr. Spies second the motion. Any other discussion or comment? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you all. Our last case for this afternoon is BOA case number 3012. Request by an applicant in an 8C3 highway commercial zoning district for a waiver of a portion of the required 10-foot planting buffers on the northeast and west sides of the property, a waiver of the required buffers and required number of Class A and Class B trees within the interior required planting buffers of the newly created property, a reduction of the required street planting buffer, and approval of the proposed landscape plan. Property is located at 50 Park Place, Covington, Louisiana. The applicant is Rouse Slant King Mill LLC. The representative is Gulf States Development Services. Mr. Mike is here, not Jason Riebert. And Mike is there. Staff comments, please.
As shown on the attached drawing, the site is proposed to be developed as follows. 0.6 acres parcel to be subdivided from the existing grocery store site to be developed with a drive-through restaurant. And the existing grocery store is proposed to be renovated as an entertainment venue and also a swimming school. The additional attached drawings show the existing buffers and landscaping to be preserved. Note that the property was developed before the adoption of the Unified Development Code and does not meet the current landscaping requirements. And the proposed landscape plan showing additional trees to be provided within the existing buffer and parking area and also within the newly created 0.6 acre site. While the proposed landscape plan does not meet all the current landscaping requirements, it will greatly improve the appearance of the site. Also, the waiver of the interior buffers will facilitate circulation on the site and shared parking between the two commercial businesses. Should the board be in favor of the requested waivers, it should be subject to the following: providing additional parking island within the existing parking lot.
Okay. Mr. Saucier, you want to speak for this, and then please state your name and address.
Okay, Mike Soche, I'm president of Gulf States Real Estate and Development, 109 New Camellia Boulevard, Suite 100, Covington, Louisiana. And I'm here today just my company has this property under contract with Rouse. To give you some history, this store was part of a 21-store acquisition that Rouse did of A&Ps about some 15 years ago. The store, frankly, does not perform very well. It's on the lower tier of their portfolio. As y'all may know, I developed for Rouse. We have another store in St. Tammany Parish planned, coming up behind this one. But about 5 years ago, I entered into a contract with Rouse to try and move this store out of their portfolio and bring it back into commerce. And I'm happy to say, after 5 long years, we've been able to do that. Rouse has been very patient with us. And so Rouse actually owns the property as we sit here today. Our company is planning a press release in about 2 weeks for what I'm going to tell you about here. And so Rouse now has 2 stores in West St. Tammany. They have 2 in Mandeville. They're spending a considerable amount of money renovating the store on Highway 22 near Beauchene. They have Claiborne Hill, which is north of here, which is a huge store. This one just kind of, again, it was part of an acquisition and it fell in between the cracks, and they've decided to move it on. I'm happy to report that after 5 years, our goal was to try and bring family entertainment to St. Tammany Parish. And we have been successful in attracting Urban Air, which is the #1 family entertainment venue in the United States, and been working with them for a year. The same tenant controls a franchise called Goldfish, which is the #1 swim club for children in America. Now, that is not, you don't go there to swim and recreate on the weekends. It is strictly swim school to teach young people how to swim. And they're very successful, and they'll be taking about 10,000 square feet of this building. And so we're very excited about that. As Helen stated in the staff comments, this is an existing property. It was developed prior to the code being in place. We have a very successful Home Depot next door. If you go there, it's very busy. Home Depot has approved all the plans that are sitting in front of you today. That was one of the things that we had to get done through a cross-access and cross-development agreement with them. Some of the new information that's in your package, I've got a little couple of sheets on Unleashed Brands. Why Unleashed Brands? Well, Unleashed Brands has all these brands, but Urban Air is their main brand in here. And again, I mentioned family entertainment. This is not just a jump house. This is for families. This is for corporate activities. This is the type of thing that we really need here in St. Tammany. I've also attached a clean site plan. So your package has some of the same information that Helen has in her staff report with trees. We're going to talk about that. But I want to draw your attention to the sheet right after the Unleashed Brand sheet, which is the completed site plan, and this is the Fifth Amendment site plan. What does that mean? That is the one that Home Depot's approved. There have always been four amendments to the ECR agreement. This is the fifth one. And we have adequate parking. That parking was test fit, not only against St. Tammany Parish requirements, but Urban Air's requirements. We do not have a lot of excess parking. If y'all go to Home Depot, you know a lot of their parking stalls have mulch, tractors, trailers, and so we really don't have the opportunity on a busy day or a busy holiday weekend to park there. So we like having some extra parking spaces. Helen's staff comments mentioned that we're greatly improving the site. Well, we certainly are doing that, is bringing these tenants. I want to point out this is a regional tenant. This particular facility is to service Slidell all the way to Tangipahoa Parish, all the way up to Franklinton, Louisiana. So we're bringing, where this Rouse store was obviously very local, we're bringing a regional tenant to this property. We do not have a robust sprinkler system at this property. We have an old sprinkler system. As much as I'd love to say that we'd like to comply with Helen's request that we jackhammer the parking lot and put in 6 or 8 more landscape islands, we would prefer not to do that. It's expensive, and I do not have this, I can't water the trees. I'd have to jack and bore the parking lot and do a tremendous amount of things. We are adding 44 trees to this site. We'll be restriping the parking lot, redoing the building, redoing the air condition, and all of those types of things. So we would appreciate your approval without that. We are also redoing the lighting. We're changing all the lighting to new LED lighting in the parking lot, which will be nice for everyone. Why the out parcel? Why are we here? It's simple economics. Over the last, again, we've been working with Urban Air for about a year. Over that time frame, really a year and a half, construction costs have gone through the roof. Insurance, even north of the interstate, has gone through the roof up here. May not be 50%, but we're looking at probably paying 25% more when this building is done than what's being paid right now. So we came up with the idea of, okay, well, maybe we can create an out parcel. This is certainly going to be a very viable and busy tenant. Maybe we can create a small out parcel there for a Domino's Pizza or something that we can monetize into the project and bridge the rent gap. And we had about a $2 square foot rent gap that we couldn't bridge. The deal died. The deal came back together when we came up with this idea. So that's why it was out of necessity that we figured out a way to bridge that rent gap. We do not have it leased or sold at this particular time, but but it's part of our financing package, which we're complete with. The only reason we haven't made a press release yet is we have to get through this process. Next week, we have to get through the actual re-subdivision, which this is a prerequisite for, and we have to finish our financing. And as soon as that's done, you will see a major press release. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have, and we would appreciate your consideration. It's a very important item making this deal happen.
Thank you, Mr. Saucier. I'm going to recognize myself, and I apologize if I missed this, but it calls for a drive-through restaurant, some kind of food. What is that going to be? You haven't identified that yet?
No, we haven't. We put that here because it's probably the most intense use that could be on the site.
Yeah.
And to get, that's the most sensitive, drive-through. But it could be something other than a drive-through restaurant. But we are limited in 1,800 square feet, not by the parish so much, but we will be when the site plan's approved, because it's only a 0.6 acre out parcel, but we're limited by Home Depot. This is a site plan attached to Home Depot. You will see a note on the site plan that I included that Home Depot has given us another 3,000 square feet in addition to the 47,598 square feet for urban air. Why is that? Urban air after they looked at the building, they came back and said, Mike, we may want to put some offices up high. They're going to tear the ceiling out where we put security. We're watching what's going on in the place, making sure there's no bullies, doing this or that. We also may put our offices up there. We also may change the air-conditioned vestibule and the entrance a little bit. So that 3,000 square feet is just what do you want to call it, some grace for them to use to finish up their final plans and specifications. That 3,000 square feet is not in the parking calculations that are in here. So that's going to suck up 6 or 8 parking spaces, maybe 10.
All right. And attachment, then what is urban air? Is that included in this package?
It is. It's called Urban Air Adventure Park. And I don't know if any of y'all have been to one or have been to a main event, which is their #1 competitor in the United States. But it has a myriad of venues, bowling, jumping. There's a list of things here that they do. And they're doing their floor planning right now to determine exactly what this community is in need of.
Okay.
You can go Google them. There's a tremendous amount more information than I wanted to bore you with today.
That's good.
But the big thing is they are rated in all categories of entertainment, #1 in the United States for family entertainment.
Okay, Mr. Spees, I recognize Mr. Spees.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Saucier. I was looking at some of the sketches, and it looks like they've been rearranged a little bit. Maybe some of the trees are being cut down. Is that true?
When you look at our replanting plan, which shows where the colored trees are going, there are some trees that have been lost over time. We're replacing those. We're planting some new trees. So all those colored items there's several landscape plans. The last one is really the one that shows all the trees. So yes, where we may have an island, we got one tree there, and there's not one on the other side, we're replacing that.
Okay. I saw some large oak trees that look like oak trees on the property, but I just...
There's a heavy stand of trees along the front.
Yeah.
And maybe some water oaks, and all we'll do with that is trim them up.
Okay.
It's not maintained very well right now.
Okay.
But we'll trim them up, and Bill Reich is our landscape architect. He's come out and done a survey of what's there. We have a lot of crepe myrtles in the lot, so we'll be planting some of those where it makes sense. But there's a number of other trees that they'll be planting here.
Thank you.
I'd like to recognize Ms. Thomas.
Hi, I have been, as a grandmother, I have been to this particular urban area, and you're correct, it's absolutely wonderful and very much needed in this parish for children. However, the board has to look at what the staff recommends, and I want for clarification, because you mentioned we don't want any islands, and the staff recommended that you provide one double parking island within the existing parking rows where there's no interruption with one Class A tree in the island. Are you opposed to that?
We feel we've done enough. We would, jackhammering up active parking spaces where urban air, again, we got this 3,000 square feet that's not accommodated in here. And this particular facility has big weekends, big,
I
events.
understand. I'm thinking about the
and that type
traffic.
of thing. And they're just concerned that they would like a few extra parking spaces.
As
and
much parking as
As
possible.
much as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I recognize Mr. Blash.
Yeah, I guess my biggest concern was kind of along her lines about parking too, because, in which you're suggesting 5 or 6 parking spots. I'm concerned that if this is as popular as you suggested it will be, is there going to be a problem with parking, an actual problem with parking? I know that we, delegate a certain amount of parking spots based on square footage, business type, that sort of thing. But what do you foresee in terms of parking needs, actual needs? Do we meet that requirement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We do. Urban Air has a tremendous amount of history of their stores, so they provided us. We went for parking studies, and again, we cross-check what the parish required, because sometimes what the parish requirements are they just aren't enough. So we
Right.
cross-check that with Urban Air's history of parking requirements on other facilities, and they were very comfortable with this. But said, Mike, we'd like to have 15 or 20 extra parking spaces for that weekend. Particularly, we butt up against Home Depot's contractor area, and that is just, it's a zoo. It's hard to park over there.
Mr. Ross Liner.
Sure, why not? And I know this area pretty well, the Home Depot, the Rouses and everything, we make the comment, but it's up to the board to make that determination when you hear from the applicant. And look, I know the site and circulation right now with not a lot of activity is difficult. So imagine with someone of this type of activity, especially on weekends, holidays, whatever else. So yeah, while we recommend things, other information becomes available at the hearing itself. So
I would, in this instance, I would suggest that gaining those extra parking spots might behoove us to have that in place versus, from a functional aspect, versus having trees. Now, what I would suggest and offer is an idea is, I don't know what size trees we're talking about planting at this point in time. Is it the North American tree standard or greater?
Yeah, it would have to be Class A trees in the island, so we would just need to determine, the board needs to determine the number of trees.
Right, and I'm suggesting that maybe these trees could be a little bit larger than just the regular North American standard, which I think goes up, 14 inches and measures the circumference or the diameter.
I would not suggest to plant larger trees because they're very difficult to find. It's very difficult to
Okay.
find larger trees
All right.
right now. So if the board, want to impose the trees, then, just impose the minimum requirements. Or you can always suggest to pay it into the tree bank, which does not provide trees on the site, but it's an
Right,
option.
right. I would actually be interested in that, in terms of the tree bank. I'd consider that as another option too. This being a more mature tree might be a better situation, but if it's, staff suggestion that we do this through the tree bank, I'd be in favor of that.
We would be more amenable to that than, again, losing valuable parking. And again, with
100%
the
agree.
fact that we don't have a way to water. Where we are going to plant crepe myrtles where they're missing in the existing parking lot, we are going to try and get bigger trees so it doesn't look like this,
That's,
so we're going to make an effort to do that. Around the perimeter, it's not, we don't want that to look like we just planted a little tree this big and we've got a crepe myrtle that may be, 12 foot tall. So we're gonna try and get a little closer.
Okay, anyone else, any other comments, questions, clarification? Entertain a motion, someone have a motion?
That we pass 2022-3012 BOA and along with the staff comments of the changes.
I have a motion from Mr. Spees to approve the request for variance subject to the staff comments with regard to the landscaping plan and I think with the note that that the applicant would be amenable to pay into the tree bank and to provide additional parking spaces.
Right, so just a question on that
Yes, sir.
motion.
Yes, sir.
Is that motion to include the parking bank being created according to staff's
An
recommendations or
option.
no?
It was not listed as an option.
Okay,
So if Mr. Speed's motion is to provide additional islands and trees, then we need to look at the plan and determine where those islands would be added and trees as
Is-
well.
I was understanding that that was not part of it, but I'm asking for clarification on that.
Okay, all right. That's right, that's right.
It's not, okay.
part of it.
Okay, okay.
It is not part of it.
Right.
So it's not subject to staff comments.
Right, that's what I was trying to get an understanding of.
Is
that
the motion to accept, to approve the variance request without any additional planting?
But provide for the.
He
the
said
bank.
he's gonna do some planning.
Yeah,
No.
44, the current plan has 44 new trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
So according to the proposed landscape plan?
That's what I said.
Okay.
okay. And I don't know if I should be offering this, but the question for me was, did it also include the shortfall of trees to be,
Payment to the tree.
To be offset by the-
I made that clarification.
right, okay, so that isn't going to be in the
Yes.
motion. Okay, I just want to make sure we get everything in the right motion.
Okay.
before I vote
Are you
for it.
requesting to payment to the tree bank?
It's not
No.
my motion.
But it sounded like.
It's very
not
confusing.
my
Chairman,
motion.
why don't you restate what you stated and see what everybody says?
Okay, what I added to it was that the applicant is agreeable to paying into the tree bank if he cannot satisfy the requirements of the
Islands.
plan, the island.
I would just like to know, it looks to me that there are maybe 5 trees. Helen, you look,
Well,
if
if
I'm
you-
looking at the plan, there are
if you-
2 long rows that don't have trees in the center. And then there's 1 row of 20-something spaces along the left side of the building. That would be the 5th tree. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you look at landscape plan L4, then you have 2 long rows in front of what is currently Rouse's that do not have.
Any intermediate trees?
So you would have 2 islands with 1 Class A tree, so that's a total of 4 trees. And then if you look at the one that you stated along the side of the building, 1 additional island, so it would be 5 trees. 5 Class A trees. So either you would plant those 5 Class A trees or pay 5 Class A trees into the tree bank. Is that what the motion is?
Seems reasonable. Mr. Speaks?
I'll take back my motion.
Well, it could be a motion with an amendment.
Yeah, a friendly amendment
Whatever.
by the chairman, I guess.
What's that?
Did you offer a friendly amendment to his motion?
Yes.
Okay. He's okay with it? Yeah.
Okay,
We agreed to 5 Class A trees to be planted within the parking lot or paid into the tree bank?
I believe, Helen, you stated previously Class B. Am I wrong?
Class A.
All right,
Yeah.
just making sure.
If you would like to go with Class B, it's fine.
No,
Yeah.
I'm just asking because I heard, what?
Okay. We have a motion as amended. Do I hear a second?
Is it 5 Class A or 5 Class B?
Whatever the code requires.
Yeah, that's what I say, whatever the code would require is what we should submit as a resolution or
I will tentatively second, I'm not sure. I will second the motion with the amendment.
And we have a second by Ms. Thomas with the motion with the amendments. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please vote with your screen.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Associate.
Keep it quiet till the press release, please. I'm just kidding.
I know nothing.
I know. What's that? Yeah.
Okay,
Thank y'all.
thank you. That concludes our cases for this afternoon. Next item on the agenda is old business, and since I am the commandant in charge of old business, I have a couple of things to add. Number one is we had one after-the-fact case in today's three, which gives us one after-the-fact in the last 3 months. So I'd like to say I think we do have a deterrent. Number two, we have discussed the payment of a fee for the board members, and I was directed to have an audience with Mr. Ross Liner, our Director of Planning and Development, and I did, and we have a resolution that Emily has drafted that would go before the, if we're all in agreement, I guess. Do we need to vote on it, or what do we need to do?
Yeah, if you all want to take a second, read it over, see if this is what you all intended to pass, or if it needs to be adjusted. And then if you all want to take a vote to resolve to support an ordinance, then the next step would be to bring it to the council and see if we can find a sponsor at the council who's willing to do that.
Okay. I've read through the resolution, and I think that's what we wanted to do, so I am in agreement, and to give everybody a chance to look at it. And then I will call for a vote.
The only question I would have is for Emily. Never mind. I read it in the last sentence, or the last 2 to 3 lines of the entire resolution.
And just
Just pointing out for each attendance, so that was it. I didn't see attendance anywhere else, but there it was.
Yeah, and I would just copy, like, if, once we do the ordinance, I would just copy the language that's used for the planning and zoning commissions.
And
Excellent.
I'd like to ask a question in regards to the number of meetings. It just says 24 meetings in the event that we would need more than 12.
Right, and again, that's just copying from what the planning and zoning language is.
Okay, no problem.
There may be instances where we have more than 12 in a given year, so
Okay.
I want to provide for that contingency.
Do you have to attend
Yes,
to get paid?
yes.
And what about alternates?
I'm not attending any more than 24 meetings a year.
But yeah, payment is contingent upon attendance.
What about alternates?
I mean, I was looking at the revised statute when I was drafting this, and alternates are not required to attend the meetings. So I don't know if you all want to adjust the bylaws, to make any statements regarding attendance of alternates, or just include them in the payment. I mean, it's really gonna be, I think, up to you all.
I was told that they were required.
Yeah, if they're not required to attend the meetings, I would like to put for the board right now that we adjust the bylaws so that the alternates do attend the meetings.
They're not required by law, by revised statute to attend. Yeah, they're only required by you all's bylaws. So you all can adjust your bylaws to either compel attendance or not.
I would just think, today is a perfect example. We needed this,
Yeah.
Which is now a sitting member,
What's that?
which he is now a sitting member of the day.
You're right.
So he
Of the day, so.
That's right.
Oh, so he would be, okay,
Yes.
so I guess depending how you.
Yeah, so he had 5 members here, but you had 2 alternates, would we pay the
Okay, so he
alternates?
would be eligible for compensation
Correct.
for PD, per diem?
Yes.
Okay, okay, if that's the case, yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there so we're clear on what we're doing. I mean, that's gonna cost me another $200. That's to be clear, you know, I have to do the budget.
I think we're clear.
Well, not, really, it's not because if you have, he has to be there because of an absence, then it's not possible. If it's based upon attendance only.
But if D'Artagnan hadn't shown up, we didn't know Sean wasn't going to make it till earlier than today. If he didn't show up, we only had 4. And I'm going to address that in a minute.
Right.
So if it please the board, I think we want the alternates to show up for the meetings, and we want the alternates to be paid. If they show up for the meeting, then they get paid like everybody else.
I hear you. So that's-
So that would be the extra, yeah. Okay.
Everybody nodding their head? We're good with that?
Yeah.
Good, okay. And so, if we're all in agreement, then I'm going to call for a motion, and I would move that we approve the resolution as amended for $50 for board members, alternates. So I make the motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Got a second from Mr. Spees and Ms. Thomas. Any other discussion? Vote with your screen. Very good. And I will plan to be in attendance to present that at 3 o'clock in the morning or whenever it may come up. All right. All right, one more. I got, still under old, I don't know if it's under new business. Let me ask you all to think about something. And staff, please correct me if I'm off into quicksand here. It is awkward, I find it awkward that it takes 4 votes we have 5 voting members, and it takes 4 votes to pass anything. And I think the 4 votes that's probably a state law, or that's probably a law. But the number of board members, first of all, I find it awkward to have 4, especially when we've had instances, and I think you've all been in attendance, when we only had 4 people here. So if one person votes no, then there's no chance for approval of that case. So I was thinking about this, and I thought, well, what if we expanded the number of the sitting members to 7? Then 4 would be a simple majority, and it would hopefully, I wouldn't feel as awkward about having 4 votes. And then we could have 7 sitting members and 2 alternates for 9.
But I think we've had this discussion before. I think it's required by state,
Yeah, you'd have to change the state legislation
yeah, in order to do that. In order to-
For what? For which one?
in order to expand the membership of the board. You can only have 5 sitting members by state law.
Oh, okay.
How much longer are you gonna think about this, Tom?
What's that?
Knowing that information, how much longer are you gonna think about this?
Not at all. Well, wait a minute. Can we change the number of votes required? Why can't it just be a simple majority then, rather than 4?
That might be better.
Yeah, I'll check on that and see where, I mean, I know it's in our
Instead of a state
ordinances, and I'll check to see if it's a requirement of the revised statute as well, if it would only require a change to the ordinance.
Yeah. And then we could go 3, and it's a simple majority of 5. Yeah, I like that.
Mr. Chairman, I too have felt uncomfortable with that.
I know you have, Ms. Thomas. Yeah,
So I would certainly concur with that.
yeah. Good. So it's something to think about. Emily's got it for action.
And just for food for thought, though, I think that bar needs to be very high on an appeal process, because if it's already been turned down at some point in time, there has been a reasonable, consideration of the case. This is a second look at it. That bar needs to be kind of high, I think, because, like I said, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So
Right, I mean, because you're an unelected board varying the law that's been established by the elected body.
Right.
So that is why it is the way that it is, because the variances from the law that's been passed should be few and far between. And only in those instances of, some unmitigated factor. But I will definitely check and see if that's something that can be changed by the council.
But then also, do we want the reasoning maybe behind the requested change, that whether it's reasonable or not to go from 4 to 3, based on what Emily just said?
Is that, we don't know if that state statute is at this point, or not.
I'm looking at it right now.
Emily doesn't think it is, but it is in their ordinances, and so you gotta have 4 votes.
Yeah, the ordinance says the concurring vote of 4 members of the board shall be necessary to reverse any order, requirement, decision, or determination of any such administrative official or to decide in favor of the applicant on any matter upon which it's required to pass under any such ordinance or to effect any variation in such ordinance. So that's what's in our code of ordinances. I'm looking at the revised statute and I don't see that same vote requirement.
It is at least very awkward to when you can have, you can have a quorum, but the quorum couldn't approve.
And you know what, if I have to recognize that, I would say, I want my case postponed.
Well, I was going to suggest this, because, I'll just say this,
Yeah.
and we should be able to offer that, maybe as a statement, announcement statement, that we do not have a presence of 5. If you would like to reschedule this meeting for another time, we would entertain that for you, or allow it.
Yeah.
And maybe that's the better way to handle that.
Well, let's go with where we are, and then we'll talk about it. I brought it up for us to think about and figure out how we can ease Ms. Thomas's and my feeling of awkwardness. Okay. Any other old business? How about new business? How are we doing, Ms. Helen?
I think 4 cases for next month.
4 cases, and what's the date?
The date of the meeting is October 4th.
October 4th, 4 cases. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I will not be in attendance. I have another president of my organization. It's a fundraiser that afternoon, and so I will.
Thank you. We will make sure we have alternates accordingly.
I'll strike that big.
And just before we adjourn, just to go back to what we were discussing before, I did find it in the state law, the revised statute, and it says the concurring vote of a majority of the members of the board shall be necessary in order to do that list of things. So our
So
law
that's
is
3.
Yes, our law is a higher standard than what's required in the revised statute.
I like the state.
So yeah, I mean, it's something you
Okay.
all can discuss and explore.
You okay with that?
I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Grace.
Yeah. So moved.
So moved. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
If you want to sign here.
Oh. I'll be glad to.
And he has to sign the resolution, correct? Emily?
Yes.